You don't need that in your life. You don't need to be told that you need a summer body. Your body exists in all seasons. You have a summer body, a winter body. It is your body. Adi, yadi, 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 yadi.
Welcome into the Train with the Best podcast, a podcast by Fit Pros for anyone who loves the world of fitness and wants to understand it better. I'm Craig Hoffman, a personal trainer, performance coach, and media personality. My typical co-host, Chris Gorez, 15-year strength and conditioning coach, master trainer, and international educator, is internationally right now. He is on vacation in Puerto Rico, and thus it is my pleasure to welcome in from my living room my co-host for today. She is my fiance, which is why she's in my living room, because it's really our living room. She's also a senior master coach at Solid Core, and she is a business development and marketing professional, and she's just overall, I like her a lot. I'm pretty biased, though, and she's just fantastically smart. She's been on the pod a bunch at this point. Rachel Sandler is with me. Hi, babe.
Hi.
So we were obviously talking about pod topics this week in terms of what do we want to do with Chris out, and we floated a couple of ideas, and the one we've landed on is one that I love. It's one that you came up with, so I will give you all of the credit in the world for that, and it is fitness red flags. And actually, even later in the podcast, we'll get into misconstrued fitness red flags, things that might seem like they're red flags, but they're not. So we will start off with some hard skills, some things in terms of the actual programming and that kind of technical ability where it might be a sign that if you're a trainer and you struggle in this area, or you have a colleague who does these things, or if you are someone who is a fitness enthusiast that is working with a fitness professional, that you look at and go, oh, that's not good. And then we'll get into some soft skills as well. So the communication element of it. And I think what's really cool, Rachel, is we come at this from similar backgrounds, obviously, and a lot of the stuff we do together. Mm-hmm. But for my purely coaching professional side, I work a lot with one-on-one and small groups. You work in the group fitness setting with Solid Core. So we get to see some different things, some of which cross over and some of which are kind of within those lanes.
Yeah, and I think it's also a nice way to tie in so much of our education. Some of these are things I don't think either of us knew when we were just starting, both as fitness enthusiasts or coaches, and it's the benefit of our education. It's feedback we've gotten over the years. It's further education we've both done, and so I think it's like a nice conglomerate of our respective skills.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, as we get into our first red flag on starting with the hard skills portion, this one was unfortunately one that you learned from personal experience as a client. And that is programming multiple heavy max effort, quote unquote, lifts within a workout. I'll let you take this one from here and share as much as you would like.
Yeah, I don't brand myself as a barbell specialist. I certainly work in the strength training space with Solid Core, but by no means would I suggest to someone that I can help you improve your max effort squat. And knowing that about myself, at this point years ago, I went looking for somebody to train me in that space because I knew it was somewhere I didn't have the acumen, the education, and I started training with a trainer, and they understood that I was very strong from Solid Core. They understood I had a great strength profile from Solid Core and from various other weightlifting endeavors of my own, and frankly overestimated me in some ways, and also did not ramp me up appropriately and did not program well, is what I came to learn. And I came to learn that because I got injured. The way the programming was set for the day, we did a warm-up, was fine. We did some heavy lifts. I did a heavy back squat, very heavy back squat for me at the time. And we did some heavy suitcase squats after the heavy back squat. And then after the heavy suitcase squats, which were new to me, I'd never done them before, we did a heavy sumo barbell deadlift, sumo stance. And that was also new to me. And on the, I think, second to last effort, I felt my back go. Like I felt it kind of like, and I doubled over I couldn't get up, couldn't get off the ground. I was terrified. And I was actually coming back to strength training from an ankle ligament injury that I sustained in like a high intensity class. And so it was really demoralizing. And I rehabbed that with Ashley, God bless her. And I was feeling I'm fine now. But
but it took a while.
It took a while.
And it wasn't just the physical part, it was the mental part. Like that was right before we met, and you know, putting you on a, you know, I said the word deadlift and you're like
yeah, and of course, like, I love hamstrings. I love everything. I want to be hamstrung at all times, and it's my brand. And you know, in talking to you, you were so curious as to how the injury happened, and I remember it was like a gradual sharing of information because you didn't want to insult anyone. You didn't want to be like belligerent or braggadocious or condescending or mansplain anything, which I really appreciated and loved about you almost immediately. But you were kind of like, walk me through the programming of the day, and I sure did, and you were just like, what the you were pissed. I was pissed when I found out. You were just like, why would you do that? And that is how I learned about that sort of programming. That's how I learned about CNS in such a big way, because you were like, you can't do that to anyone.
Right. And so to explain this, like, can you squat and deadlift in the same program? Absolutely.
Sure
can you do multiple heavy things? Kind of, but like, you have to think of your tank. Like, you know, I think a lot of times we make like body car analogies and they kind of suck because cars are machines and human bodies are human bodies. But to the extent that you have a fuel tank, it really is that CNS. It's the central nervous system. And eventually it's going to be shot. And you take a massive amount out of that tank when you do max effort work. And so if you do a 5x5, like, that's a lot. You know, if you were to do a 5x1 and do a lot of rests and then do like another 5x1, okay, well, ultimately that's 10 reps. If you want to do like 5, you know, if you do true max effort, like, you're not going to have 5 in you. You're going to fail before you get to 5. But like, if you were to do a ramp up and your last one's pretty max effort, and then you take a big rest and do the kind of the same process with the squat, and like, also let's say you do deadlift first and then you do squat, like, along the way, you might feel like, okay, I'm losing it in my legs, and you might not get there to that, your PR, right? But like, at the end of the day, could you do 10 pretty high effort reps? Yeah, of course you could do 10 pretty high effort reps. But can you do 50? No. And that's a 5x5 times 2, which is what I believe the trainer had you do, with a thing of suitcase squats in between. So it was
everything
like,
that day was my PR. Everything was my PR that day, because I hadn't done any like significant training. It was my 3rd ever session with the person. And again, like, I've always been told I'm a high performer. I've always been told I'm very strong. And so it's not, I went to someone I considered an expert because I knew what I didn't know, or I thought I did. And I was like, I don't know what's appropriate for me. I want form guidance. I don't want to just sign up for a gym and go and like screw around on a barbell. Like, I want somebody to watch me and give me cues and support me and spot me and make me feel confident. And boy, did that not work.
So I think it's just important for, you know, if you're a client looking and talking to a trainer, is there conversation about what your level is, what you've done, and what you've done lately? Because that's the other thing too, is like, yeah, my PR is 500 on back squat. Okay, cool. That's really impressive. When did you do that? Well, I did it 15 years ago when I was a D1 athlete, and now I'm 35 and I haven't touched a barbell in 5 years.
But
okay, so you want to squat 500 a day, huh? Like, that's not going to happen. And you always are better off, going back to the tank analogy, leaving something in the tank than getting stuck on empty, because that injury thing is, you know, it's the one rep that you shouldn't have done. And it only takes one. And so you can always come back next week and go again. You can always come back next week and go a little heavier and push a little harder. But especially when you get started with the client and you're building that relationship, and especially if they've been out of it for a hot sec. When I say out of it, not out of fitness, not out of shape, so to speak, like out of the thing that you are doing in that moment, out of practice in the very stimulus that you are giving them, you are really required as a trainer to push them a little bit, see how their body responds, and then come back and adjust, and week over week or session over session continue from there.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'd add to that is you and Chris say all the time, keep the main thing the main thing. Whatever the priority, the heaviest, the most challenging part of the workout is going to be, that should be prioritized first. when you have the biggest tank available. And that is the antithesis of what happened to me, because there were so many biggest things, but there was also one of the biggest things programmed last in my workout. And so that's very dangerous. And I think that's great for trainers to understand, because it's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of conflicting information out there. And I think for newer trainers to understand that less is more, like you're saying, but also for clients to understand that they have a right to push back in an individual setting, right? Like that, to be like, hey, I don't know that I'm comfortable doing this super heavy lift at this point in the workout. And that should be a red flag for them to be like, why are we doing it this way?
Right. And I mean, look, are there programming situations where you could technically do the hardest thing last? Yeah, but that means if it's an hour session, you spent 50 minutes warming up for that last 10 minutes of absolute whatever. Like, your body's in preparation mode. You are always in preparation mode till the main thing. You do the main thing, and then there should be a drop off of intensity after that, or at least a drop off in demand after that, out of what you're asking your clients to do, or asking your own body to do if you're programming for yourself or being programmed for. Yeah. All right, what's the next red flag that you have?
Yeah, so our next red flag is workouts. Your workouts, whoever's workouts, are unnecessarily long. I think that there's this common misconception in the space that a long workout is like the best thing, right? It's like, and I'm not saying that every workout should be short. I'm not saying every workout should be long. It's kind of that there should be some happy medium. And I think on a one-on-one personal training setting, you have to meet your client where they are. We have clients between the two of us who are super busy, high-level executives who have so much demand on their time. It's our job in our different spaces to provide them with suggestions that fit their needs, because that's ultimately what we're trying to accomplish here. But if you're going to a trainer and they're offering you programming and every workout is an hour and a half to get it done, that is inefficient. That is likely unnecessary. And I think that that's a red flag and a misconception in the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's your responsibility as a trainer, for anybody listening who is, or like, if you're a client and you work with someone and they're like, well, we have this hour. It's like, yeah, well, you don't have to work out hard the entire hour. I had a session last week that I just straight up cut short because the client, she was hurting. And I was consulting. She's someone who works with Ashley as well on the physical therapy side. And I, when I saw something in the warm up that was off, I texted Ashley and was like, this doesn't look good. Right. I don't think she's been doing the things that she was supposed to do from a rehab standpoint. And like, I'm concerned. And so we worked through a like borderline personal training PT level thing. And eventually just got to the point where I was like, all right, it's been 40 minutes, but I don't have anything else for you because I don't think that's good for you. What you need to do is stop. And so after 40 minutes, I made the case and I was, that was it. There are other times where like, not even on the injury side, someone comes in tired, someone comes in whatever, and they're paying me for the hour. So if they want an hour, like I can always add longer warm up. I can always tag mobility or something that's extremely low demand on the end of a session. And I've done that a lot. And sometimes I know it going in and I will take that extra time on the front end so that they feel like it's a regular workout and they don't even know that I'm quote unquote cutting it short. And then there's other times where like we get 35, 40 minutes in and I'm like, you doing all right? They're like, man, I'm tired. It's like, okay, well, let's do one more set and then we can stretch. And if you want to take 10 minutes back of your day, you can leave early. I won't be offended. And if you're like, no, I'm paying you for a full hour, then we'll stretch and we'll do some other stuff, rehabilitation wise, whatever, to fill out your hour so that you feel like you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it's obviously a little bit easier to adapt in a personal training setting, but I do it within the scope of my class, right? And I've been doing it a long time with a lot of practice. And so my approach might be different than other coaches. And certainly within the scope of my practice, I have the freedom to program for my clients, whereas an Orange Theory or something doesn't necessarily because they use like a template. But if I'm looking at the week as a whole and all the classes I'm coaching, 8, 10, however many, and I see that we've got like heavy primary muscles on certain days, like, you'll see glute max or glute med and you'll see back or chest, I accommodate based on like stretching or shortening other parts of the programming. And so,
right.
If I understand that we're going to need a shorter lower body sequence within the scope of this day because of what preceded or followed it, then I add to other parts of class to keep it balanced. So that if I were somehow to have the like vocal cord capacity to coach every single day, which I simply do not, despite everyone asking,
no.
and like the exhaustion. But
Right.
but I
Don't get any ideas, Brian Myers. Yeah, I'm looking at you.
But I do try to approach my weekly classes in such a way that if you were to see me every single day, you would not have the same core warm up. You wouldn't have the same obliques. You wouldn't have the same lower or upper body, because not just of the muscle focus rotation, but because I understand that if the day before was chest, you need more support for your shoulders on the following day in core. Like, I can't have you doing more push up adjacent work. It would be inappropriate. It would be unfair. And so while certainly not like able to condense class beyond what I have, I make sure that other muscle groups are getting attention in different ways to mitigate damage.
Right. And that's like that next level understanding that, you know, hopefully a lot of coaches in whatever their discipline are getting, is like just understanding the totality of what's going on besides the 1 hour that you see your client, or 2 hours or 3 hours that you see them a week. You know, if you've got someone who's an executive and is super busy, or just, you know, someone who just got off vacation, like, they might not have moved a lot in a week, and, you know, they probably didn't eat great, so their body's probably a little underfueled. Like, I hope they had a good time and mentally they're refreshed, but like, you gotta ease them back into things. You can't just go ham immediately.
The last thing I was going to say on that is a long workout doesn't equal a good workout, and a short workout doesn't equal a bad workout. And I think that is kind of the like end of that red flag for me, is like, you can get a great 30-minute lift or a 30-minute hit session. And I mean, I've even done 20 minutes and had it be really effective because I focus and I get it done. And you did
the Instagram series. If you got 20 minutes in,
no, 100%.
You snap and all of a sudden equipment shows up. It's great.
Yeah.
Except for the one where they didn't. And then I was like, all right, 20 minutes in a bodyweight workout.
Right. Magic.
Pew, pew, pew.
Your next red flag.
Yeah, next one, which actually leads kind of into that same thing, that every workout leaves you gas. And look, I will say there's like caveats here to this one. Because if you are training with a client one time a week, or you're training with a trainer one time a week, and that is the workout that you want them to gas you, of course, you need to have the conversation that we just were talking about. You know, how do you feel? How alert are you? How recovered are you? How did you sleep last night? How fueled are you? How hydrated are you? Like all those things that go into every single workout, no matter what. But if you see some of my clients, I see them once a week, and I'm the workout where they want to die, and that's what they want.
Who are you talking about? Who are you describing?
All of them. I train people who are sadistic. It is what it is. It's like people who really, really like solid core and Jane Coaston.
Jane.
But you know, there are times that those same folks come in and like want a easier workout because they've done a lot of solid core, or Jane has created some absolutely bananas thing or done something she found on the internet. She's like, this is cool. And then I get a text that a picture of her lying on the floor. She's like, wow, this is really hard. I'm like, yeah, I could have told you that if you asked me beforehand, but you know, here you are, dead as usual. But you know, if say you train with someone 3 times a week and every single workout is the same intensity and it is incredibly difficult every single time, that lack of variety is going to burn you out after a while, mentally and physically.
I think that this is a common misconception, again, that every workout needs to leave me totally gassed. And I'm sure you and I can think of some spaces in the DC fitness market that have evolved from this in a big way, to retain their clients and grow their community, because this is how they started. And
we don't have to be coy. Like Chris talked about this on the podcast. If you want to learn more about this in business retention, go listen to the Chris Parent podcast, because he did it. He had to do it with Cut 7, and freely admits it.
Yeah. And they've done a great job over there with that. So
yeah, definitely.
As someone who used to want to only die in every single workout, I'm like, yeah, no, you were right.
Yeah. By the same token, on the other side.
Yeah. So the next red flag is workouts are too easy. If every workout leaves you wanting more, available to do so much more, and never feeling like you challenged yourself in any way. And challenge doesn't have to be load. It can be like, I never challenged my balance or my mobility or my stability or my control of anything. Like, that should be under review. And I know you have a lot to share on the personal training side, but I would also say within group workouts, within group fitness, within solid core, sometimes people, I swear to God, they leave a class and they're like, that was too easy. I haven't had that from my end of the world, but I also think that within the space of group fitness, I actually want to take the ownership of that off the coach a bit, because it really is up to the clients to come in there with the mindset and the expectation that they're going to work hard. They're there to work hard. And so, you know, is your spring load appropriate? Are you taking the modifications right away without considering taking, the standard issue format of the form, right? Like in Solidcore, a modification of a plank is to take your knees. Are you taking your knees automatically? And if you do that, are you leaving class going, that wasn't that hard? Well, at some point, I think the ownership is going to be on the client to say, I should have picked up a heavier weight. I should have gone slower in an exercise. I should have challenged myself. And I do think that is a mental challenge for some folks. But if you find that every time you go do your workout, it's just not that challenging, you need to kind of do a little reflecting and say, I should maybe give it a shot. Give something a shot. Try something new.
Yeah, and this is where I think really good coaches like yourself, Triana, and some of the solid core coaches in the group space, someone like a Chris Perrin or Marcus and Clarence that were on the pod as well in their space in Cut 7.
Masterful at this.
Yeah, and you already know what I'm going to say is like making you push yourself. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Or encourage you. Sometimes it's literally, you'll hand clients a weight when they're in a lunge or something like that. So I think that for me on the one-on-one side of it, obviously, I get to have a conversation. If you're on a microphone, you don't necessarily get to have that conversation one-on-one and be like, so how close are you to failure? Like, you don't get to have those individual one-on-one conversations. No. By the same token, I will have those one-on-one conversations and the client lies to me without even knowing it because they don't know what they don't know. And let's say the set was supposed to go to 8 and they think that like there's no way they think they barely finished 8. Do another one, 9. Do another one, 10. Do another one. All of a sudden, we're at 15, and then they actually can't do the bicep curl, the squat, the chest press, the whatever. And, you're safe and you spot and all those kinds of things. But you actually show them where that red line is, and they're like, oh. They have that realization that they have so much more. They're capable of so much more, which is really powerful within just the context of the workout. But, like, you can extrapolate that out to other things of like, what does it really mean to push yourself? And, I think it's important for coaches and pros to remember, like, your clients don't know what they don't know. And it's your job to safely show them and guide them to that place. And if you don't do that, like, you're not doing your job either.
I agree.
Continuing on the hard skills red flags, exercises veer into the territory where they are not certified and or experienced. And I think that experience work can be really dangerous too, because sometimes people are really experienced as a client and then they get into something like, oh, I can do this. And it's like, no, you don't have a formal education in that. You should not. You haven't asked the right questions. All you've got is your own personal experience. But ultimately, like, we actually were having this conversation with a friend of ours last night who's a pro athlete, and saying like, hey, when you look for, and I'll use the trainer's name that we were talking about, who is a compliment. We're talking about Ben Bruno out in Los Angeles, right, who's really, really well known, really popular guy, and he trains a lot of NBA guys. And whether it's Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal.
For context, the athlete we were with asked if we liked Ben Bruno. She was
right.
like, "Do you guys like him?" We're like,
right,
yes.
And yes, and the reason I identified is, one, I think he's a very smart programmer and does a good job of doing the basics extraordinarily well, but he also stays in his lane in a really, really impressive way. He's like, I lift weights. I know how to help other people lift weights. I get people really strong. And I'm not out here doing a million footwork ladder drills. I'm not out here trying to be a speed coach. I'm not out here trying to do a lot of movement skills. That's not what I do. You have someone like Chris or someone like me who can do both, which is great. And that's perfectly reasonable. We have formal education in both. But we're not going to go out and try to teach a Pilates class.
I think I have 2 points to make on this one. One is I blame Instagram and TikTok for so much of it, because everyone on there gets to brand themselves as an influencer, as a fitness person, as a fit pro ? Yeah. And I think it's really easy, especially for consumers, to think that somebody is something that they are not. There's also lots of words like inspired, and it's like, no, don't be inspired. Be certified.
Yeah.
I don't want Pilates inspired combo hit something mishmash Frankenstein training. I want the real thing. And I don't say that to be like, oh, you're not good enough, or like that person's not a good coach. Like, that's not what I'm saying in some cases. But it's also a liability from a business standpoint. Even if you have your client sign a waiver, even if you have documentation, if you're providing them a service for which you are not properly certified, you are making yourself liable to damages. And I work with lawyers, and I confirm that, like, damages plus legal fees are very expensive. And so for the folks out there who are like, I want to have my own business, I salute you. I commend you, but do it right for your own well-being, not just because like there's some reputation management, not just for like ego, but I look at so much in the lawsuit space and so much in the liability space, and it's bad. It's bad for your clients. It's bad for your reputation. It's hard to come back from, and it's bad for your bank account. And so stay in your lane.
Yeah, and I'll add one other side of the coin to the first part of that. When you talked about Instagram and TikTok and all these social media platforms that allow people to appear as something they're not, that also allows people to think that they're educated when they're not. Because you watch a 60-second video on some topic, or even 10 60-second videos on some topic, doesn't mean you're all of a sudden an expert.
Correct.
And like, you can learn more. And there are times that I watch something and I go, I understand exactly what this person is doing because I have other education, and like within the principles of the things that I understand, this is a new method and a way to do something, and I understand what they're doing. This tracks. This is a coach that is very similar to me. I understand. I'm going to go do this thing. Not saying you can't learn and implement from social media, but you are like, if you're learning something new from social media and you don't have a background in it already, your learning's going to have some holes in it.
Maybe some filters.
Yeah.
Some filters. Our last red flag, I think this is great because it's a reminder to coaches that there's a responsibility to support clients in a lot of the things we've just talked about. One, you owe it to your clients to help them improve, to grow, to scale, and you also owe it to your clients to help them scale back and to find a more supportive version of an exercise. You owe them both ranges. And so if as a coach you find yourself lacking in that way, you're not sure how to support people, like if someone comes in and like, I want to get really strong, but I have whatever, like, are you educated? Are you resourceful enough to find a way to make something work for them? And on the other end of that scale, if you have someone who comes in as a former D1 athlete or a really high performing athlete and everything's too easy, everything's too accessible, they're having a good time, but they're not really growing, are you doing the work? Are you putting in the work to help them grow? And you know how I feel about this at Solidcore. I really gauge a class based on how we're supporting clients, because unlike one-on-one settings, within a room, I can have someone who's over 1,000 classes and has impeccable form and is a terror on that machine in the best way. And I can also have somebody who's either coming back after a hiatus, or it's their first class, or maybe they're having something with their body. They're pregnant. They have an injury. They have a whatever. Can I, within the same breath as I cue a move, offer both clients resources and support? And I think offering amplifications, as we call them in Solidcore, and modifications, as we call them in Solidcore, is essential. It's a great segue because Ben Bruno does this really well. When he's like, oh, I really love this exercise, and he posts it, he does a great job of being like, before you try this version, start here. And he gives you like a baseline to be like, okay, evaluate how that went. And I think that that's a great way within the personal training space to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So what this made me think of is my first fitness director, dear friend, Courtney Dipp. And what Courtney made us do was, for everything that we programmed as we were getting certified and getting started at the time Sport and Health, before she would ever let you on the floor, she'd go, every exercise you program, you need 2 up, 2 down. So if you're going to do a squat, you need to understand, okay, if let's say a goblet squat is the baseline, what are 2 modifications? So, okay, we just go body weight squat, and then we go sit to stand on a box. Or if body weight is the regular one, right? You go like, all right, we'll do a box squat, then we'll do sit to stand. And then amplifying up, a goblet squat, and then some kind of backloaded squat, typically a barbell. And so we would have to have that for literally every exercise that we would do, especially the major movement patterns. And if we couldn't do that, she wasn't going to clear us to program, because she knew that if all of a sudden something happened where a client came in with some need for that, we would be stuck. And I think that's obviously, there's a million other factors that go into programming, especially at a big box gym, including availability of equipment. But, being able to, on a very baseline level, go through the major movement patterns and say, if I need to make this easier, I'm going to do this. If I need to make it harder, I'm going to do this. And sometimes it's just if you're already at back squat, Yeah, add more weight. But then can you challenge with tempo? Can you challenge with other ways of manipulating that movement with ISO holds and things like that? And do you have the know-how? We talked last week about overcoming ISOs, right? Like, can you convince a client and also talk to them about the benefits of doing an isometric at a weight that they can't move to help grow their strength, to keep them safe, because you don't necessarily want them squatting 600 pounds. So there's a lot of different factors that go into that, but on a baseline level, it all comes back to a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. Can you challenge your clients safely and effectively, and keep, that's both up on the challenge side and, making sure that it's something that's accessible to them and ultimately keeps the goal that they have in mind top of mind, and you're working towards that.
Yes. Retweet.
With that, I'm in on the first section. Curtain closed on Act 1. When we come back, let's talk about some soft skills. So get out of some of the programming, some of the nitty gritty, into some of the communication skills and some red flags that can show up there. That's next on the Train with the Best podcast. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Super Coffee. And we just got a brand new coffee maker espresso machine for our apartment. And I'm pretty psyched about it. And I'm pretty psyched about it for a lot of reasons. Like, obviously, getting to make my own cool coffee at home is very exciting, and it's convenient, and it saves money and all those kinds of things. But it also means that the Super Coffee grounds that I've had, now I have a place to really use them and also to share the love, because I had like a little pour over thing that was individual, and now I can just make a pot of coffee. And if we have friends over, we can be like, hey, do you want coffee? And I'd be like, hey, here's this delicious coffee. And they don't even have to know it's Super Coffee. Of course, I would tell them, because why would I deprive them of that knowledge? And by the way, what did I just say? It's convenient, it's delicious. All these things that I said of why I'm excited to get this coffee maker, that's also just what Super Coffee is. And you don't have to make it. That's the convenient part. It comes in a ready-to-drink bottle. They've got all kinds of things. So whether you're ready to drink, whether you're a nice pot of coffee at home, if you're looking for some creamer to go in, really either one, they've got you covered. Anything coffee adjacent, one-stop shop. DrinkSuperCoffee.com. Use the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST and you get 25% off your first order. That's TRAINWITHTHEBEST at DrinkSuperCoffee.com. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Jaku, a personal speed and agility measurement system. Jaku has eliminated the need for expensive timing gait system, and they killed the stopwatch. Now you can test speed, agility, and reaction time with just the Jaku speed wearable sensor and your phone. That's it. Nothing is easier or more accurate. Way easier than those gate systems, way less expensive than those gate systems, and it's way more accurate than a stopwatch. I know a lot of coaches, you're like, I don't know, my stopwatch is pretty accurate. You know what's more accurate than you? A machine that has technology that's patented and is proven to work each and every time. Now, whether you're measuring reaction time, set up a short gait and see how fast someone reacts to something, to just getting a super accurate time over time, rep after rep, set after set, continually consistent timing device, there's nothing better than Jaku. And that the really, to me, the coolest thing about Jaku, what sets it apart, is not only can it be used for straight line speed like the gate systems can. Again, I don't know why you use an expensive gate system when you can get a Jaku, but like, fine. We've used it forever. We trust it. Cool. Let me see your gate do a 5-10-5. Let me see your gate do a custom drill that you made up that you've been trying to get accurate timing on for years. Let me see your gate system do anything that is not straight linear speed. Jaku does. So quit messing around. Go right now. Jaku.com/discount/TWTB for 20% off. That's Jaku.com/discount/TWTB. Continuing on the Train with the Best podcast, Red Flags edition, not us, making sure we avoid red flags. Let's get into some soft skills. I think these are really, really important. And you and I have spent a lot of time thinking about, talking about these things, sometimes on the podcast, but we have discussions probably a couple times a week about this just in our home as ways that we can do better with this and that we can help others do better with this. So I'll let you start on this. What's your first red flag on the soft skills side of things?
Yeah, so I think actually this is another great segue from what we we just talked about in the hard skills section, that we should be able to support clients of all levels in challenging and making things accessible. And the first red flag for communication is using toxic language about the body. Fitness is for every body. It's for every single body. There is nobody who wants fitness who shouldn't be able to get it. It's important for mental health. It's important for physical health at all levels. Everything from bone density to cardiovascular longevity. It is essential for well-being. And so when folks use toxic language about the body, either they commoditize it. You hear this a lot about women's glutes. They demoralize parts of it. They deem some parts unattractive or unworthy because of the size or the shape of a part of a body. That is unacceptable. We are in the year of our Lord 2022. We can do better. We can simply do better. And so much harm has been done to people at so many levels by using toxic language about the body that it is simply not something people should have to endure anymore. And I don't know, do you need a permission slip from me? Whatever it is, I hereby authorize anyone in any space, in any setting, who encounters toxic language about the body that makes them feel unworthy, ungood, bad, poor, uncomfortable, sexualized, objectified, demeaned, leave, get out. The JoJo song, leave, get out right now, leave. You don't need that in your life. You don't need to be told that you need a summer body. Your body exists in all seasons. You have a summer body, a winter body. It is your body. Yaddy, 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 yaddy. But I think it's important that, especially in this space, as we continue to strive for better, we continue to support our clients better. And so if I hear a trainer talking about, oh, let's get those abs right. What is right? Does it mean that we're contracting them? Does it mean
it means that they can safely support the spine, obviously.
Right. Or are we talking about like the certain appearance of certain parts of our body? It's unacceptable. I'm done.
Yeah, I retweet.
I kind of want the next one too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I will give it to you. I'll just follow up on this because I do think it's hard because we've all been socialized in the same, toxic atmosphere, right? And so people are going to come, it's one thing for you yourself to be like, oh, I see what's happening here and break out of that shell. But you're going to work with people who are not, that come to you with aesthetic goals, that come to you saying these, oh, I want my summer body, or like, I want to look great. And like, they don't even necessarily have to be toxic, right? I want to look my best on my wedding day is a perfectly viable goal. And you are not putting on said bride or groom, that you're just taking in what they're saying. But I do think it's really important to talk about the things that you are and what you're not, right? If someone comes to you and says, I want to look my best for summer, or I want to look my best for, for this beach trip coming up, right? I want to look my best for my wedding. I want to look my best for whatever. I think it's important to go, well, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I can help you get stronger. If we're being honest, the benefits of strength training can help probably for what you are looking for. That is your goal. That is not mine. You're also going to have influence from genetics and diet and all these kinds of things. If nutrition is something that you think you need help with, I would highly recommend a nutritionist. And, you can get where you want to go. The reason why this is so important is because body dysmorphia and eating disorders and toxic relationships with exercise have an extremely high morbidity rate. Like they are mental health issues.
The highest morbidity rate.
Right. Of any mental health disease, body dysmorphia and eating disorders have the highest morbidity rate. So we are talking about setting these boundaries to protect people, and they are extremely high in terms of frequency. We're talking like 1 in 10 people have these issues, and not 1 in 10 die, but like 1 in 10 have them. And then there's an extremely high morbidity rate relative to all mental illnesses within that population. So the reason we set these boundaries is because we don't know if the person that's coming to us is that 1 in 10. We don't know if they just want to, look their best for their wedding, or if they have a disordered relationship with food and exercise. And so we should not be talking about these things, because if it is the person who is disordered, or if we do it in a way that causes a disorder, we could be looking at a literal life and death situation. And that's not being over dramatic. That is just the world in which we live. And so I think it's really important. And the way I do it is to just say, hey, look, I hear you. And if those are your goals, great. But at the end of the day, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I will help you get stronger and I will help you be better conditioned. So you'll be able to work out longer, more intense, all those kinds of things. And if you have aesthetic goals that you set for yourself that I did not set for you, the chances are you will get closer to them by doing the things that we are doing.
100%. But there's no need to make people put up with that
Yeah.
language in a fitness space in any capacity.
100%. 100%.
The next red flag, I think that this disproportionately, but not exclusively, impacts female identifying clients, and it is inappropriate touching. I feel that touching is part of my job as a solid core coach, right? I'm here to offer you support, to offer you accountability and corrective touches. It's never going to be highly sexual. It's never going to be invasive. And if you communicate to me that that's something you're uncomfortable with, I'm not going to touch you. I get it. I don't like being touched for many reasons. And there is an epidemic of this with certain male trainers. You can go on Instagram and you can find them pretty easily, but they will showcase, let's say, a lunge or an RFE. And for some reason, they make it seem appropriate to touch their client on their glute, to grab their client's hips and forcefully put them in position in a way that involves a lot of, frankly, groping. That's not a corrective touch. That's groping. And I think it's important for trainers to ask for consent when touching a client, to do so respectfully, to do so professionally. And I think it's important for clients, especially female clients, especially newer to fitness female clients, to understand that they do not need to endure that. It's easy in that dynamic to be like, I guess this is appropriate. I guess this is what they do, if you don't know. But there are lawsuits against several male, prominent, famous male trainers because the way they touch their clients is sexual. And and they put it on video, which is to me just mind-boggling.
Yeah, if you're gonna do that, you're probably not the smartest person to begin with. So it never does cease to amaze me the amount of stupid people who do stupid things. You're like, wow, this is so much stupid.
And so to me, this is a huge red flag that hopefully a lot of us know, but I think it's a good reminder for all instructors that asking for consent before you touch someone is a really small step that can make a really big difference. I'm not somebody, again, who likes to be judged. And when a client or a coach is really like respectful of my boundaries, especially if I don't know them, I really appreciate it, as opposed to them coming up and touching me right away, because frankly, it makes me a little uncomfortable. It makes me a little jumpy. And I appreciate that consideration being offered. And so even at the smallest level, right, where it is well-intentioned, where it is a safe touch, offering that respect is really valuable.
Yeah, before you touch a client in any kind of way, you should ask, is this okay?
Yeah.
And if you do think that the best way, like you've tried every other cue, you've tried telling them to put their hips in a certain place, and you just get to the point where you feel like the best way to actually genuinely correct them is to grab their hips. Like, ask again. Is it okay if I adjust your hips?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're going to get into spaces that can be misconstrued easily as more sexual, you should ask permission and then be very, very careful to make sure that it is done with the utmost professionalism. Yeah. And even some of my clients are some of our best friends. And I will still ask, hey, is it okay if I, adjust your hips, if I move your shoulders, right? I'm also very careful with how I touch. If I'm just like doing a more general corrective touch and I've established consent for general corrective touches from said client, like I'm not grabbing and anything like that. Like I will take either a knuckle or like a stiff finger and like jam it into their lats, right? And be like, this is where you should feel. Or like a nice firm pat on their lat if I'm trying to get them to feel it in a certain place. I'm not going to also do that to their glute.
No.
Like the same thing would work, right?
Or their
but I'll be like,
adductor.
hey, right. Oh yeah, 100%. And it's like, hey, go get on the foam roller for 20 seconds and like, let's activate that. There are other ways to get tactile responses and create the mind muscle connection without your hands going a place they don't need to go. And so, yes, are there legitimate reasons for a tactile response in a glute? Yeah, but there's no reason it has to be your hand.
Right.
And even like if I will not do that for like not use a foam roller for like a glute med, there's like the thing that Ashley has, the little flex thing, or like I'll just say it's a PVC pipe, right? Like most gyms have one of those, but like something that is an extension, like a PVC pipe, and I will be like, here, right? Like I'm not going to use my hand, and it is going to be very professionally done, and being cognizant of that is what it means to be a professional in that setting. To take that extra step, take that extra precaution, and your clients will feel that and respect that and be grateful for that. And it also protects you from the liability front. And also, I think, establishes that your motivation, your conduct is being done for professional reasons with zero questions asked.
So on the trainer side, I think the big takeaway is even the smallest gesture of respect can actually make a really big impact to your client, because they might not be willing to share with you that they're uncomfortable. And I think on the client side, if something feels off, it probably is, and you're entitled to speak up or to seek other support. And so I think that's like the kind of the gamut between the two.
100%. All right. Next, soft skills red flag. If you are a trainer, or your trainer is using more statements about themselves than about you, that's not great, because they're training you or you're training them. This is not about you. And that is not to say you cannot use personal experience. I feel this when I do it. However, you may whatever differently. Talk about other clients, a variety of experiences, and your own can be included in that. But if you are exclusively I, me, when I do this, my thing is, then you're not actually going to be helping the person that you're training, or the person that's training you is not going to be helping you, because their focus is in the wrong place.
100%. I feel when I coach, I try to avoid saying I statements. I don't cue to say, I want you to feel your glutes. No, I say, as you do your lunge, think about squeezing your glute, keeping a soft bend in your, or whatever the case may be. It's all about your client, right? Instead of saying, I want you to dig deep and get the most out of this workout, you say, think about your goals. Think about your hopes. Think about how you want to feel. Think about you. The emphasis should be on them. And so I think it's important to take a step back sometimes and say you before you say I or me.
Right. And that's such a great point, because I feel like so often we're like, I want you to run here and do this, or I want you to push whatever. And just if you simply replace that with the goal here is, then it becomes about a mutually shared thing, but really about something that's been established for the betterment of the client versus like, because at the end of the day, I want you to run as fast as you can to that cone. What do I get out of that? Nothing. The whole thing is about the client. We talked about this a little bit in terms of toxic language, but I think in the area of nutrition and food, it gets real bad. And it's something that goes back to what we talked about in the first segment of staying in your lane, unless your lane also includes a nutrition certification and background in education. But if it does, then you probably know better. So I'll let you take this one from here, because I know it's again something you feel rightly strongly passionate about for some of the reasons that we've already discussed.
Yeah, we made a dedicated choice to separate this from the first red flag in this section, that food as a motivator or food as something you have to earn is wrong on so many levels, because of the nature of that language, because of the harm it does to people's psyche and the way they perceive fitness. It's something that starts at such a young age for so many athletes, or just children, frankly. You know, they have exposure to their parents saying, oh, I have to run because I ate X or Y or Z. Kids pick up on that. Kids internalize it. Kids grow up to be teenagers who have low self-worth because their understanding of food is not that it's fuel that we need to survive at a base level. It's something we need to earn, because God forbid we should have caloric intake. We bastardize the language around food and fitness, and we've done a terrible job as a people doing that in the past. And so not only is it a question of certification, are you providing accurate, safe information for your clients, but it's also something that within the fitness space we should never use as a motivator. We should never use as punishment. We shouldn't be like, oh, I have to eat this because I ate the other.
Oh, you had an extra brownie this weekend?
Who
Well, now
cares?
you got double the reps on your finisher. No, like that's not how the science works. So even if that was accurate, like, or even if that was acceptable, like it wouldn't be accurate. And two, it's completely unacceptable.
Right, because of the harm, because of the risk we're doing. I think that there are so many things out there masquerading as lifestyles that are actually diets. If diets worked, we wouldn't have diets because they would.
It wouldn't be $1 billion industry.
Right, diets are designed for people to fail and for people to suffer, and that is just a hard reality. I'm not saying that there isn't value to nutrition counseling, to one-on-one support from a certified expert if you have a goal adjacent to food to get support. And frequently, I think one of the things that some athletes find is they actually need to consume more calories because, again, they have been conditioned by society for so long to view less as more. And that is simply not sustainable. It's very dangerous. And not just like you could get injured, it's you could be horribly ill with irreparable damage done to your body at a cellular level to your organs. That's really impossible to come back from. And so, or even death, like not to be super morbid, but that's the reality of eating disorders in our space. And so, no, like we're not doing the cupcake earning language. That's in my highlights still when I popped off about that brand in Philly. But
Yeah.
I also think it behooves people to stand up to it too and to say, that's wrong, do better.
Yeah, 100%. And when I was working on a project along these lines for One Life before I left for US Fitness, talking to a eating disorder specialist, and she said a lot of my clients, their disorders start in the gym. They start with a trainer who gives them bad information or creates a toxic language or uses toxic language and creates a negative relationship between exercise, fueling, and the person, and it spirals until they wind up seeing me. And thank God at least they see me, because for some people they never get to that point, and it gets to the points that you were just talking about. So and super, super important.
A plug here for trainers and coaches. NEDA, the National Eating Disorder Association, has a entirely free education like module on how to support your clients if you suspect that they might have a toxic relationship with food or with exercise. It's really been helpful to me. I find it super valuable. It's not laborious. It's free from NEDA. So you can just Google NEDA, NEDA, and get that resource and use it. It's going to make a huge impact for your clients and for you.
Yeah, I will, if I can remember, try to link that in the show notes.
I will remind you.
So, okay, you're good at remembering things. It's part of the reason why I'm going to marry her, because I can remember things. It's great. It's low on the list of reasons.
Good.
But it's somewhere down. It's a nice perk. Trainers who are impolite are never on time. It's as simple as this. If you value someone, you should treat them well. And whether you are the client or the trainer, you should value the other person. And it is a professional transaction, and it should be treated as such. Communication is key. If you're 5 minutes late, fine. My 7 a.m. clients know 7:05 is our hard time. If I'm not there by 7:05, you have every right to be mad at me. But we've all agreed that. And by the way, that works both ways. If I'm there at 6:58 on a particular day and you're not there till 7:02, you're not going to hear a word about it from me, because that happens. It's early. Some mornings you're just not moving that fast, and that's fine. It's part of the deal. But if you have a mutually agreed upon whatever it is, it's ultimately on both parties to respect it. And from a timeliness standpoint, like, time is money. It is what it is. We only get so much of it. And time is also time that could be spent elsewhere. Like, if you're late and, all of a sudden your client misses something with their kids, like, that's on you. So don't be that trainer. And by the way, don't be that client either, because it's also incredibly rude. And you, especially if you're like early in the day, you wind up setting everyone back.
Yeah, 100%. I don't really have a lot to add to that. Just, I think it's important to find that your trainer treats you with respect. I think as a client, it's important to treat your trainer and your coach with respect. And so whatever respect means to you, you should be both demonstrating and receiving that respect. Our next red flag is the use of negative or abusive phrasing. And this doesn't mean like, oh, you're a piece of shit because that squat sucked. Like, certainly not that. But also things like, oh, I see you're on your bullshit this weekend. or you never do X, Y, and Z. I think that that's something that, again, fitness has done a really bad job about. And I'm not saying there aren't clients who respond well to a little like antagonistic banter, right? Like you can do better, like you can push people that way if that's how they like to be.
Accountability is allowed.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Goras likes a little shit talking before he does a heavy squat. We know this. But that's also something that he's open about and he communicates about and he requests verbatim. And also it's like a personal relationship, so it's different.
Yeah, he wanted Rachel to yell at him before lifting, and then he lifted a lot of weight, and I was like, man, that must be nice.
Yeah, and so it works for him. But I find that some trainers, even well-intentioned trainers, will be like, oh, I'm off my bullshit this weekend, or my client came in and they were blah blah blah. Like I usually find that to be like so unnecessary. Like, why are you beating people up before they even get in? Why are you telling your clients that they have to live a perfect life according to your standards? And so I find that to be something that keeps creeping up in the space, and we don't need that.
To me, this is why like you let your clients set their goals on the front end, right? Like, because it does get to a point eventually of accountability, right? And there's different ways to talk about it than like, oh, well, you were on your bullshit again, so no wonder you're not reaching your goals, right? Like you shouldn't ever get to that point, but like if they established a goal and they are not progressing and they come in and they're like, well, I was doing this, this, and this, or like I haven't been doing this thing that you told me to do to rehab my injury, you'd be like, well, look, actions have consequences and you're making choices. And, if this is a goal that's really important to you, then you need to make choices that are going to serve that goal. That's a decision you get to make. I will provide you the tools, but at the end of the day, you got to follow through.
I say this all the time, but accountability can feel like an attack if you're not prepared for it. But we don't need to actually attack our clients to provide them with accountability. There's a balance here.
No doubt. This last one is really, really a great one. And it is one that actually our friend Triana, we were with Tree this weekend, who is a higher up at Solid Core and a phenomenal coach in her own right. And we were asking her about it. And one of the things Triana, who is a Black woman, said is like, when I walk into a space, I want to see who's there. And, for her, she wants to see other women. She wants to see other Black people because she wants to know, like, am I going to be welcomed and comfortable in this space? And if there are other folks there who have had similar life experiences or come from similar backgrounds, then she probably feels pretty safe that that's going to be okay for her. And so whatever it is that you are looking for, and generally speaking, more diversity is better because that automatically proves that folks from all kinds of different backgrounds of any different kind, cutting across any different socioeconomic type of way you can cut society, are welcome there. And so looking for diversity, looking for spaces that have different types of people is something that is probably going to help you have a more positive fitness experience, whether you are looking to work there or looking just to work out there.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said. Fitness is for every body, every one of them. Mm-hmm. And so when a space is so dedicated to catering to exactly one person, they are, in a sense, ostracizing and also stereotyping and also promoting, frankly, racist or sexist or misogynistic stereotypes within the space. And again, that is not serving us. And I'm not saying that a trainer who only trains elite NBA athletes isn't going to have a certain person. Like, I'm sure most of Ben Bruno's clients in that space are pretty tall and pretty male.
Right. But he also trains Chelsea Handler. So
yeah, no, I mean, there's some range there for sure, but I think it's important. And again, this is supposed to be a conversation where we kind of layer our red flags. And if you're doing the other things right, diversity really shouldn't be much of a problem because you're speaking to people in a way that's respectful of their body, of their capabilities, of their background. You're communicating, you're programming in a way that's supportive, and you're programming in a way that's supportive. And this is something that I see in my space. I've coached all different bodies, all different fitness levels, all different just people. And so everyone is welcome. Not everyone may enjoy it, and that's quite all right, but everyone is certainly welcome. And when trainers are posting only one type of client, or God forbid a coaching photo where everyone looks like they're cut, paste, the same person, we have a problem and we need to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, this is the right thing to do and creates a great positive space where people are going to be able to do their best, but it's also good business. Quit limiting yourself and who you can train by not being inclusive of any number of ways you can exclude people. All right. When we get back, last couple of things. What are some red flags? Wait, nope. That's not red. That's
green.
That's a different color.
Green.
It's green. It's green. Green flag. Green flag means go. What are some misconstrued fitness red flags? That's next as we wrap up the Train with the Best podcast. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Momentous. And I got to say, since we had the episode at this point, it's like 15 episodes ago with Patrick Dixon, the director of applied sports science for Momentous, I've been really on it with my supplement game. Multivitamin every single day, Brain Drive every single day. I've been really on it with the vitamin D and magnesium along with my elite sleep at night. And last week was an incredible test of just how important that supplementation is. I didn't get a ton of sleep. I had a bunch of stuff going on and, later nights, early mornings, and my sleep is a little more inconsistent. And yet my Whoop recoveries in the green basically all week. I was stunned because there were some days I didn't even get 6 hours of sleep. But I got the most out of my sleep thanks to Elite Sleep. And my body was able to do the kind of repair work that it needs to because it had all the vitamins and minerals that it needs thanks to the Momentous supplementation. It is such a great way that they've set up their website now too, is they've added all these new products from the Huberman Lab and they explain what they do and best use. So go build yourself a routine, build yourself a regimen, and then stock up. LiveMomentous.com. Use the code TRAINWithTheBest25 on your first subscription order, and you'll get 25% off that order plus 15% off all of the refills. You're going to feel the difference. Go to LiveMomentous.com. TRAINWithTheBest25 is the code for 25% off your first order. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Blaze Pod. And did you see the viral Blaze Pod video that went around last week? You've heard of bending it like Beckham, but can you plank like the Beckhams? Yeah, David and Victoria Beckham doing a little plank competition with Blaze Pod. And it was really fun because for me, I actually had some clients that I did unknowingly before I ever saw the Beckham video, did the same exact drill with, and they sent it to me and were like, hey, I guess we're just David and Victoria Beckham now. And I was like, well, who's who? That's a conversation for a different day. The point is, whether you're using it for what I think most people know Blaze Pod for, speed, agility, reaction training, or as a really fun way to spice up other exercises from single leg RDLs to planks. Blaze Pod is a way to enhance your training. Timing, reaction, adding that mental stimulus to any number of ways in which you train. It is a phenomenal way to enhance training during a session, to get your body warmed up, or to really make your athletes, especially if they're sport athletes, make decisions in a finisher when they're tired that will simulate those late game scenarios where execution is everything and the game is on the line. So go to blazepod.com, use the code TWTB for 15% off, and get yourself a pair of Blaze Pods. Go to blazepod.com and use TWTB for 15% off. Wrapping up the Train with the Best podcast, let's get right into it. Red flags that actually aren't. Misconstrued fitness red flags. Things that people think are harmful that actually are good signs. First one, I'll take this one, Rachel. The coaches or trainers programming the same exercises over and over and over and over again. It is actually the way you should program. At the end of the day, there's only 7 ways the body can move. There are those base fundamental movement patterns. And if your trainer is having you squat frequently and deadlift frequently and bench press and row and do pull-ups, like that's a good thing. That doesn't mean that there can't be some kind of mental stimulation to make things exciting and new and fresh, and that there aren't ways to mix up some of those things and add a little variety outside of your main lifts. But like we say, keep the main thing the main thing. The main things are pretty much the same for everybody, and then you specialize from there. And so if you have a trainer who is doing similar things and progressively overloading them, and whether that's time under tension, load, velocity, whatever, as long as you're seeing growth, you don't have to do a million things. And by the way, like to go directly to like the Instagram bullshit, muscle confusion is not a thing. You should train muscles in joints at different angles. And like, there are things you need to do for variety's sake to make sure that you have a whole program that is well done, but like you're not confusing your muscles. Your individual muscles don't have a brain. You do. Use it.
Yeah. If you come to Solid Core, you're going to see the same movements. Granted, if you're under 50 classes and you come in frequently, you might experience some new things from class to class because you're not getting that like continuous engagement from the workout because it's new to you pretty frequently. But there's always going to be variations of a plank, a squat, and a lunge every class.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great because that means you get time to grow and adapt and benefit from those movements. And so seeing the same thing over and over again is not a bad thing.
Yeah. In fact, it's a good one.
Good one.
All right, next one.
This one goes back to some of our social skills, but your trainer doesn't want to be your best friend. That doesn't mean that some of us aren't really great friends or even best friends with our trainer. But if your coach isn't engaging with you at a personal level, they're not telling you about their relationships or their private life, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Trainers, just like, well, in fact, are people. Trainers are people. I'm a person.
What?
And they're entitled to boundaries. And I think it's really important that clients understand that just because I don't want to be your best friend doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with our dynamic. There's nothing wrong with you. There are just sometimes in some spaces I need some distance from clients. I need a little bit of a boundary. And I find this on Instagram. I see myself as a service provider for all of my clients. I'm there to keep you safe, to support you, to uplift you, to strengthen you. And that's a job. And for some of my clients, they are really open with me. They share a lot of information about what's going on with their body or their lives or their mental state. And I am here to support you. And I will do that. But that does not mean that I owe you access to my personal life. I share a lot on Instagram. I try to be pretty transparent about stuff and things I care about. But that doesn't mean you know me at like a really deep personal level. And sometimes that's for my safety, both mentally and physically, as well as yours. And so there are people I only see in the solid core space or a studio setting. And that's great.
You know, at the end of the day, it is a business relationship. And even for our clients that are really close friends and are friends beyond the fitness space, sometimes you have to be professional with them and have discussions about, certain policies that you may have if they try to get special treatment, or, your prices are going up and you're like, hey, look, this is it. And, if they're really your friends, they should respect that and they should never put you in a bad spot. But like, we all know that sometimes it's not how that goes, and that can get complicated. So, there are some folks who would tell you like never become friends with anybody you have a business relationship with. I think that's a bit extreme, but at the same time, there's value in it, and there's certainly value in the sentiment, and making sure that you're super clear when you're professional and when you're being you're in the element of your personal relationship with them, friendship, whatever it may be, is really, really important. This next red flag is actually also from a conversation we were having recently with a friend of ours. And it's not what you thought it would be, right? And this is more from the client end. You hire a trainer and you have this idea of what training is going to look like. And you're progressing and you're getting what you want out of it, but the training itself, the sessions itself, are not what you think they would be. You've hired an expert who has knowledge, as long as they haven't violated the red flags that we've talked about already in this thing. They have knowledge. They're doing a good job. They're getting you closer to the goal that you've said. And the reason you hired them is because you didn't have that know-how in the first place. You didn't know what it was going to look like. Otherwise, you wouldn't be spending that money. Probably a lot of money if they're a good trainer. And so knowing that, like, it's important that you get the experience that you want, right? That you enjoy that session, that it feels like money well spent. But when it comes down to the programming, the technical aptitude, you do need to be able to rely on the fact that you've hired the right person. If you're not getting the adaptations that you want, that's one thing. As long as you stated them clearly and, you don't secretly want to get jacked, but you said, oh, I just care about getting stronger, right? Those are two different goals. But if you hire someone, you state goals, you agree on them, that person works you towards them, and you are progressing, and it just doesn't look like the way you want it or that you thought it would going in, that's not a red flag. That means they know what they're doing, and that you actually made a good decision in hiring them because they clearly have knowledge that you did not.
Yes.
Last one?
Last one. They're all good, so it's not the best one. But the red flag is that if you're not sore after workout, the workout wasn't good. You just talked about adaptations. If you are doing the work and you are embracing the work, because the work is the joy.
The work is the joy.
You might not be sore after every workout. Soreness usually comes from a new stimulus. In solid core, that might be taking a longer class or trying more amplifications or adding weight to the exercise that is new to your body. And so your body's going to react with soreness most likely. But as you adapt And as you continue to grow and strengthen from the workouts you're doing, you might not experience soreness. And that doesn't mean you didn't just work out. It doesn't mean that you need to do 25 more workouts that week to get sore. Chasing soreness to find strength is not a great way to go about that, to say the least.
Yeah. You're just going to destroy your body. So don't do that. Don't do that. This was great. Thanks for doing this.
Sure.
Chris will be back next week. If you like our stuff, make sure you're subscribed on wherever it is that you're listening right now. YouTube, if you're watching, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., etc.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe button. Also, smash follow on Rachel's Instagram.
Rachel.Sandler.
Which is, there you go. I'm at Craig_Hoffman. You can follow us at Train with the Best 21 or on Twitter at TWTB 21. That's it. That was a long pod. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you listened to it. It's evergreen. So if you're like, hey, I guess if you're at the end, then this wouldn't matter. But, you listen in parts over time. Send it to a friend. They only got 20 minutes. Fine. They can listen to it over the course of time. With that, thanks for listening. That's it. And that's all for this episode of the Train with the Best podcast. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for checking out this video. If you like it, we got more. Make sure you subscribe right here on YouTube and check out our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or even our website. It's got everything there. All the links you could possibly want. Go check it out. Trainwiththebest21.com.